As you can see, there is much controversy about this text of Scripture in Genesis 6, and it is necessary to make you aware of it in searching for the truth. I will add, unfortunately, to this controversy, as I believe the Lord told me something about the giants or Nephilim. What I'm going to tell you is so new and controversial that even my fellow colleagues don't know what to make of it. It cannot really be proved or disproved, and all I would ask my Christian listeners to do is to pray about it. In the text in Genesis 6, there is a problem with the addition of "and also after that." By this, I mean that if the genetic line of these part-human divine beings were cut off and destroyed by the flood, and the Bible clearly establishes that Noah and his family were forensically clean from this genetic interference, then how do the giants reappear? There's been a lot of different ideas, and many of them good guesses, but I think that most of the people are not looking at this text of Scripture from a perspective or believing that a hollow earth actually exists, and that Cain's descendants, as possibly giants, may be the best logical answer to that mystery. Let's look at the text again. The giants are being mentioned as being present at this event and after the event. Now, nowhere is there anything to define that they had anything to do with the events themselves. They were simply witnesses to the events. The text goes on to describe the event. The sons of God, Ben Elohim, had sex with the daughters of the human race and produced an offspring called the Gibor, or mighty men, as giants, but used sometimes as mortal humans of a large height and warlike nature. Everyone assumes that the Nephilim and the Gibor are one and the same. All of the ancient language mechanics do not conflict with the idea that they could be two different groups of giants, and actually confirms that thought with the lack of any modifiers or definers that would make us indicate one way or another. It gives much more sense to that text also. If the accepted and popular idea is true, the text is saying the offspring were there, and afterward, when the sons of God had sex with human women and produced the offspring. Well, of course they would be there. They were the offspring. It just doesn't seem to make that much sense, and is a bit hard to accept when put in that way. But then that is what has been accepted by everybody. They have missed this important fact because no one is looking at this text believing in a hollow earth or understanding the supernatural curse and displacement of Cain and his descendants into that hollow earth. This idea is even confirmed by Numbers 13:33, where the same word for giants is used in conjunction with the other word meaning fallen ones. The writer wanted the reader to know that this reappearance was associated with the giants of Genesis 6, but was different from them as being fallen ones. Who are they? The punished descendants of Cain, who simply reappeared from the caves onto the surface. Therefore, the mystery is solved. I'll go back to Mike Heiser, and he has made this analogy in Numbers, and we'll take a quick look at that.
13 might be a problem with it, and this is something I still need to think through. Very plainly says, we saw the Nephilim. Now watch this. Here's one spelling. Right here, with a little letter. And here's the other one. We saw the Nephilim, ha-Nephilim there. The Anakites are from the Nephilim. This phrase, from the Nephilim, is min ha-Nephilim. You'll notice there's no yod here. You have the same word spelled two different ways. I think the reason why this is done here is because this is the way it's spelled in Genesis 6. The writer wants to link these Nephilim after the flood.
If the conditions in a hollow earth are the same as conditions before the flood, residents there could find that longevity of life and giantism may be the results of that environment. If that's the case, Cain's descendants would not want to stay on the surface for any length of time because of the harmful rays, and the difference in atmospheric pressure may reduce their lifespans considerably. I will let Dr. Carl Ball describe this as a fact.
Is Dr. Carl Ball.
Optimal genetic expression means the best that the organism has within the DNA is expressed because of favorable atmospheric conditions.
Based on fossil evidence, trees like the California giant sequoia grew much larger than they do today. One theory explains this by proposing that environmental conditions in the distant past were more conducive to gigantic growth.
Described conditions. Plants and animals would live longer, be much larger, and that's precisely what we find in the geologic column, in the fossil record. Plants were much larger. All living systems were larger. We have animals that today have an 8 or 9 foot stature with a 16 to 20 foot stature. We have insects such as the dragonfly. Today, the dragonfly has perhaps a 4-inch wingspan. In the fossil record, his counterpart, Meganeuropsis, had up to a 5-foot wingspan. Everything was larger in the past.
I'm of the opinion that under better atmospheric conditions, people were living not only longer, but they were taller, much taller.
Giants and dinosaurs could not exist today as they did in the past because the atmospheric conditions simply will not permit it.
We had a greater ozone layer at the time prior to the flood. At the time of the flood, it was diminished to about 1/7 of what it was at that time, and therefore, life on this earth as we know it no longer has the same life expectancy as it did at the time of the flood.
A thinning of the ozone layer means less protection from the ionizing radiation from space, and less protection for plants and animals.